Hey everyone, to another exciting episode of FightLogic TV, where we bring the most exciting and charismatic fighters around the Bay and around the world to your living room every day. Hey, how you doing? Today I have Jeremiah Labiano.
Good, good.
You got that right?
Yep.
Okay, good. That was a little difficult one. If you were behind the scenes a little bit ago, you would have been laughing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But so, how you doing?
Good, man. Good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being on the show. It's a pleasure. So, where are you from?
I'm from Hayward, California.
Okay, good.
Yeah, born and raised.
Awesome, local boys. See, we always like to represent here at FightLogic the locals. You know, giving props to where props needs to be done and shown. So, born and raised in Hayward.
Yep.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 27-year-old out of Hayward. I'm a personal trainer. Also, I teach MMA and Jiu-Jitsu at Crispy and BJJ in Pleasanton. Not much. I just teach, train.
All right.
It's my life.
So, what got you into mixed martial arts in the first place?
One of my buddies used to train with Crispy back when we were younger, and he was going to check out his gym again. So he figured he would bring me along. It was funny because we used to hang out in his living room, and then so he'd put me and other friends to fight each other. We'd be fighting, you know, shirtless with some sweats on or some shirts, just going at it, and he'd just tell us to do all these crazy moves. And you know, he brought me in, and you know, since that day, I was hooked. You know, I started competing jiu-jitsu tournaments probably 2 months after I started training.
Oh wow!
Whether or not I was getting beat up or winning, I just kept competing. I just love to compete.
You know, earlier or last week I had a guest and Osmar, he was talking about it. It's about continuing to do it and do it and do it and do it, and that's how you get good. So you go from sweat shorts or sweats and no shirts in the living room, not knowing what you're doing, to actually then competing in it.
Yeah.
So it gets addicting, right?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, there's no any other thing I've done, you know, that gives you a high like that.
Yeah.
You know.
And now, how long have you been doing it?
I've been training for about 5.5 years now, overall training. So jiu-jitsu, and I've been fighting professionally for about 3 years now.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. He is a professional, and we'll be getting more about the professional as we go. So right out 2 months, you're like, okay, I'm gonna start getting into these tournaments because, you know, why not?
Yeah.
Right? How was your first tournament?
It was fun. It was in Stockton. It was I forgot what the place was called, but Nick and Nate Diaz used to train out of there, and that's actually I've met them at the tournament over there, and they put me against some dude that obviously had way more experience than I did, and I think he ended up tapping me in like it was 2 or 3 minutes. It was quick. It was fast. Mm-hmm. And then it was funny because that was the no gi, and I competed in also gi. So when I competed in gi, it was 3 people. It was me, some smaller guy, and some chick. So I ended up beating the guy, and then so I fought the chick for first and second place, and I ended up tapping her out, and then so I ended up getting first place in that tournament.
Yeah.
And for no gi, I think it was only me and the other guy in the bracket, so I guess by default they took second place, which is last place. So
hey, but whatever, second.
I walked away with 2 medals. So
hey, walked away. Hey, on your first one, you can't beat that. So what was the adrenaline high? How was that to be in your first competition like that?
I mean, you're excited, you're nervous, just a lot of emotions. You're tense. I mean, it's your first. I mean, you're obviously there going against someone that wants to, you know, submit you.
Right.
So I mean, it's a sport, but I guess you can say it's controlled violence too. You know, mm-hmm. So you just got a lot of mixed emotions in you.
Now, like I brought up like last week's show that I started like training, you know, doing a little bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it's so different than, you know, because like I said before, like when you're doing karate and taekwondo and you're sparring and matches like that, it's different than when you're actually down there on the ground and, you know, basically like you said, trying to submit someone or armbar them or, you know, controlled violence. You know?
Yeah.
It's a different feeling. It's a different feeling.
For sure, it's the most humble sport out there, you know. I mean, I get my butt kicked by, you know, 120 pounders at the gym. So it's fun.
Yeah, and like you were saying, girls, you know, because where I'm at, there's a few females, and they've been going for a while, and they're in there with, you know, the other guys that have been there, and they're choking them out, and they're doing it too. So it doesn't. It's about technique and drive and just doing it, right?
For sure, yeah.
So you're doing this. You've been doing it for 5 years. you won. You got first and you got second and you took home medals in your first competition. So after that, then what happened? How did you progress?
I just kept competing, you know. My Chris Beam wouldn't even know. I tell him, hey, Chris Beam, I'm competing this weekend. He goes, oh, okay, cool. Just let me know, like, let me know how you do. And I'd give him calls like, hey, Chris Beam, how'd you do? Oh, I got first place. Oh, cool, man, cool. And then so I just kept on competing. Eventually, he asked me. He said, were you ever interested in fighting? Did you want to fight one day? And I was like, yeah. I mean, whenever you think I'm ready, just throw me in there. So I forget what year it was. I want to say 2009. I did a pure pancreation fight in San Francisco at 1015 Folsom.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Party there.
So that I guess you can. So I guess you can say that was my first, taste of MMA and fighting in front of.
Oh no, it was an actual event. No, just kidding.
Yeah, so it was weird because you go in there, it's a club.
Yeah.
They set up a ring in the middle, and then you have people just, I don't even think they had chairs. Everyone's just standing, holding drinks and stuff. And then they just put up a boxing ring there, and then, you just have people going at it. So pancreation, you weren't able to punch or kick in the face.
Right.
So it was body shots only and full, submissions and stuff like that.
Okay, so you can't punch and kick in the face.
No.
You can hit them in the body.
Yeah.
And you can submit them.
Yes.
Okay. What else can't you do? How about ground and pound?
Yeah, but if you can punch them in the chest.
Oh yeah.
In the stomach, yeah.
And
so, but you can't hit in the face, which it was kind of hard. Actually, a lot of people that night got disqualified because I mean they would accidentally hit each other in the face, and it happens. But
yeah, how do you control that, right?
It's hard.
You're
tough.
trained to punch someone in the face, kick them in the face.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh wait, in this match I can't do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, having the jiu-jitsu background, I just kind of threw some feints, to get the guy to raise his hands. Ended up taking him down, and I think I Darce choked him in the first round.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was good.
So your first pancreation match and your first cage experience, you win. And how was that? I mean, in comparison to when you were in your first jiu-jitsu match?
I guess you could say it's actually a lot more pressure because you got a crowd, lights are all on you. You got everyone standing, yelling and stuff like that. Drunk people, of course. And, jiu-jitsu tournaments just kind of like relaxing. I mean, you still have people screaming, but it's not like all the attention is just on you alone.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of different mats at a jiu-jitsu tournament versus there's only one ring and there's only two people in there. So, it was a little bit nerve-wracking at first, but once you get in there.
And when you did it, did you go in there with other skills than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or were you primarily at this point just working that, or did you already start developing more of an MMA, more rounded in your MMA?
I definitely was working on striking also, but I would say my strength for that fight, was my jiu-jitsu, and still to this day, I think my strength is jiu-jitsu, even though I do like to stand and bang with people in the cage. Yeah. So. Yeah,
and you like saying gi versus no gi, it's like totally different, right? Because obviously, because with the gi, like, because where I'm training, they're doing the gi, so they teach you moves where you use the gi, to submit them with their own gi or with your gi, per se. You can't do that really without a gi.
Yeah.
I mean, are you gonna choke them with their underwear?
Well, technically, you can grab your own shorts.
Oh.
So.
You're a wedgie. So now you've won. You won your first time in a pancreation cage, and your first legitimate cage experience. So then what happens after that?
After that, I did a few smokers. I did a couple MMA smokers, a couple Muay Thai smokers.
And for people that don't know what a smoker is,
basically
other than something to cook your meat.
So basically, it's an event where other gyms invite other gyms and their fighters, and they kind of just match them up on skill level. And obviously someone close to your weight. And it's for Muay Thai, I believe it was 3 2-minute rounds, and for Jiu-Jitsu or for MMA it was 2 3s, something like that.
So you start going to these things?
Yeah. So I, there's a local gym in Hayward, True Fight Club, owned by a friend of mine, Evan Gasquera. He's also a pro fighter. I used to go over there and just compete in smokers and stuff like that. As I was coming up, so just to give me a little bit more experience, getting in there, getting hit, giving some hits, you know, and just seeing how my skill level matched up with, you know, people around my area and stuff like that.
And you're battling different schools. I mean, kind of, you're learning in this, it has the same principles, but then you learn different things, right? With different coaches teach it different ways. They all also different names and stuff. And it really brings back the idea of like the old school kung fu movies where it's like, my gym will, you know, my master will challenge your master, and now we're gonna battle. So
yeah, exactly.
It has that feel to it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, everyone's cool like that, and no one goes in there with acting all crazy, big egos or anything like that. And I mean, sometimes it's obvious that one guy beats another guy, but you know, smoker is more of just gaining experience, and you know, they raise both guys' hands at the end of the fight. So.
Oh, good. So then, excuse me, guys. So now you're doing these smokers, and then what happens next?
I would say 2011. It was beginning of 2011. Might have been in 2010. One of those years. I ended up getting into amateur MMA. I fought at the Saddle Rack for Born to Fight.
Yes.
It was my first amateur fight. I fought against a guy at AKA. Ended up losing a split decision that night. And I fought 3 more times.
Was that kind of one of your first losses?
Yeah, that was my first. Yeah, that was
first
my
loss.
Yeah, first loss.
And how was that? I mean, obviously on a high, you know, because last week we had someone in their first amateur fight, they had lost, you know.
Yeah.
But they also said that leaving, they were so like pumped up still, like so excited, like obviously when you win, you're like, but how is it to lose?
Yeah, I hate losing.
Right.
I'm very competitive. I hate losing more than I like winning. But
that's strong. I
yeah.
mean, you know, think about that. You know what you just said. You know, you hate losing more than you like winning.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty strong stuff. So you lose, and then.
So I lost. You know, I take everything in as, you know, a learning experience. You know, you really only lose if you come out of the fight not learning anything.
Nah, that's another strong one.
So you know, after that fight, I took 3 more fights after that. Won all 3 of them, 2 by decision, 1 by submission.
Nice.
And then the end of 2011, I ended up debuting pro.
Oh, so who'd you debut with?
I fought against, his name is Derek Easterling. He was fighting out of FTCC in Daly City. He was, it was kind of crazy too, because I'm big for my weight division. Mm-hmm. So when I fought amateur, I was fighting 145s. Mm-hmm. So Chris Beam would say, "You're gonna fight 135 when you go pro," and I'm all like, "You think I'll make the weight?" So you know, I kind of had a doubt in my mind, like, "Can I make 135?"
You're like, "I'm gonna have to be in the sauna a lot, no eating."
Yeah, exactly. So you know, it was I made weight, obviously.
And you did 135?
I did 135.
Oh, wow.
I did 135. I was looking like a skeleton. It was crazy.
You're still raw.
Yeah.
Skeletor.
So I went into the fight. I think second round I finished it TKO standing knees.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I was actually a little bit nervous because he was a brown belt at the time, and he's been around for a while. Uh-huh. So I'd always see him at jiu-jitsu tournaments killing it and stuff like that. So I was a purple belt at the time, so I always tell Chris Beam, like, "Hey, Chris Beam, I don't feel comfortable going on the floor with him." Yeah. So I ended up opening up in the fight. He busted my nose. He took me down. I stood up. He busted my nose. You know, in those movies where they see they're bleeding and they just start going crazy. And that was kind of how my fight ended up.
Oh, was that your first blood?
Yeah.
I mean, you've been, you know, when you're rolling around, you get cut. And you get blood. But that's your first match where you're in your.
Yeah.
In the
so
element.
He popped me pretty good in the first round. I got a bloody nose, and after that, I just went to town. I ended up taking him down, you know, and I think he had to try to go for a leg lock, and I was punching him, and it was good. It was a good first experience.
Now, people that are like, you know, laymen's or don't even, you know, just watch and they go, "Oh, they're just 2 people fighting," and you know, whatever. No, it's really, I mean, it's more like chess when you think about it, right?
Exactly.
Because you knew this guy was a little more, you know, advanced when it comes to levels in the jiu-jitsu. So you're like, I don't really want to go there, so I got to think about how I'm going to work around not going there. So you had to implement your different other skills that you had. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And it's, you know, because people are like, "Oh, they're just fighting." It's like, no. When you get 2 real pros or 2 people that are real aficionados of the sport, you know, that are really doing it, then, you know, it becomes a chess game. So he takes you down, you take him down, and then how do you come up on the second?
We ended up we ended up locking up. I had this weird grip on him. You know, I was pushing down on his head, and he wasn't able to look up, and I was just bombing knees on him. And so he took a lot of shots. I mean, I think the ref stopped it early because he was still fighting. I obviously didn't knock him down or you know, but you know, the ref just saw that I was kneeing him so much in the face that he decided to call it.
Now that's the thing. It's like, right, even when I saw you saying that, you still, even though you knew that he still had some because he was fighting, I mean, you could feel though, right? If you're smashing someone in the head countless times or numerous times with a knee, you kind of like, okay, can you know, let's stop this. I don't want to hurt this guy, because you could have held. I mean, when you lock someone down, right? You how many times more could you hit him continuously, right?
Yeah,
you could have knocked him out
for sure.
So it's good that he did, you know, did come in, but it's interesting how even in your brain you're like, yeah, I know he could have kept going, but it's also good that, you know, that they stopped.
So obviously I was excited that they stopped the fight and won, but you know, going back and looking at it, maybe they shouldn't have stopped the fight. Who knows? But you know.
But hey, sometimes you gotta think about you know for fighter's career and
the well-being of the fighter. So,
yeah, the well-being.
I mean, it's hard being a fighter, but I think it's even harder being a ref too.
Oh yeah,
you know,
could you imagine?
You got to make the decisions on the fly.
Yeah, I was just recently watching some boxing, and they were going mad at the ref because, you know, you stopped it too early, But if it's their job to save someone at the end of the day, then when is it too early? Right? You know, sometimes you're like, oh, you shouldn't have stopped that too, you know. But sometimes it's like, you know, okay, yes, say you didn't stop it, you know, to give, you know, a little more props to the fighter, but sometimes, you know, you have to. So you win your first pro fight, and then what happens after that?
Second fight. What was my second fight?
So at this point, are you training more?
You know
what are you doing? What's your regimen now? How many days a week?
Anywhere from 5 to 6, sometimes even 7 days. So Monday through Friday for sure. Saturdays are just kind of, you know, I'll train jiu-jitsu, but as far as MMA, we usually don't train MMA on Saturdays. And then Sundays I'll train. When I have a fight coming up, I'll usually come in on Sundays to get.
So how many hours a day when you're doing it? All day?
Yeah, pretty much all day. Because I mean, we get in at 9, we go from about 9 to 11. Sometimes we'll go from 11 to 12, and then after that I'll teach, and then I'll go for a run. Maybe I'll go to the gym, lift some weights, and then the rest of the day I'm just relaxing and teaching. And even sometimes at night I'll end up rolling at night.
Yeah.
So
then you get you get your sleep and then right back at it, huh?
Yeah.
Are you a napper yet? Do you take your naps?
I do take my naps. Sometimes I don't think that's the best thing for me, just because, you know, you take your naps, you wake up, you're all groggy, and you know, you got to teach at the end of the night. So I like to keep myself busy. I try to keep myself busy.
Yeah. Because last time our guest was talking about that he's learned to take a nap during the day, because the nap kind of just like resets him, and then he feels better and he keeps going. But if you're a person that, like, you know, if you wake up and you're like, you know, especially if you don't fully get into that sleep, then it could really grog you out.
Yeah, so I mean, I do take naps and stuff, but sometimes it's against me.
Yeah. So I was talking about this also. What's nutritionally? What do you eat? What are you eating?
Right now or during when I'm getting ready for a fight?
You're not getting ready for a fight right now, huh?
No, not right. Yeah. I'm a big junk food kid, man.
Yeah.
I eat a bunch of pizza, you know, ice cream. I love ice cream.
Oh man.
Anything I get my hands on, I'll eat myself till I get sick. But you know, when I get ready for fights and stuff, a lot of lean meats, chicken, fish. Obviously your post-workout shakes, amino acids, all that stuff. A lot of greens, salads.
So you eating the salads, you're blending them, or the greens?
Sometimes I mix between juicing, and sometimes I mix between blending. So just kind of how my time is for the day, you know.
And how does that make you feel though, like when you are in training and you're actually taking this?
Really energized. It's surprising, because I mean, you go through a whole fight camp, you're dieting, you're like, damn, I wish I can eat In-N-Out, I wish I can eat Taco Bell, I want a slice of pizza. But you know, you learn from fighting when you're prepping, when you're fighting, and after the fight, you eat all this bad stuff, and your body's rejecting it. You feel sluggish, you're tired. So the only satisfaction you get of eating whatever you want is just that moment that you're eating. Yeah. But you know, when you're getting ready for fights, you're eating clean. You know, you're energized. You have a lot more energy. You're obviously performing better when you're doing your training. and you just feel overall good. You look good.
Yeah.
So.
And then that also, when you're feeling good and you're looking good and you're doing it good, then that obviously is an extra, motivational pump up for your brain, because you're like, yeah. So when you get closer to the fight, you're like, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So now so sure, you're pro still, obviously. Are you at 135 or did you change?
135. Yeah, I'm still fighting 135.
Now, how does it feel, the 135 now, compared to the first time you were asked to go to 135?
It actually I think the cuts get easier. Well, I mean, the cuts are never easy, but I guess you can. Yeah, it does get a little bit easier.
I've never cut. I need to learn how to, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's. I've never missed weight. Actually, I lied. I missed weight by 0.5 pounds my last fight, but I jumped in the sauna and 20 minutes later it was off. So, but no, I've always been on weight and never had any issues. There was one issue. That it was actually a messed up issue because they were trying to find a fill opponent for me. Supposedly they found one. I was cutting weight. I had Chipotle the day before.
Oh, those guys are big.
I'm thinking in my head, chicken, salad, good. It's good for you. But there's a lot of sodium. So the sodium is going to retain a lot of the water.
Right.
Or at least whatever water your body has in you. And, when you're cutting weight, your body tries to hold on to every last bit that it has. So that cut was pretty bad. I showed up to weigh in, and no opponent.
Oh,
didn't show up.
Oh man, how is that? How is that? You've been trained, and this was like whatever. You're training, and then it's rude.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you've been devoting yourself to this. You've been like, I'm gonna be fighting, and then they just don't show up.
Yeah. No, it definitely sucks, and it's actually happened to me twice. There was like a patch in my career where it was kind of hard to get fights for me, and people weren't showing up at the weigh-ins, and it takes a toll on you mentally because you're prepping for fights, you're acting like a professional, you're eating like a professional, training like one, you show up ready, and
you're building all this energy to release.
Exactly.
And then it's like, I'm no release now. It's like, what am I gonna do? Go beat up a bag now? It's like, no, that's not fair. I've been training to battle this. I've been doing this. So it must be difficult. So now let's move. So now you're a pro, and how many pro fights have you had now?
I've had 9 pro fights.
9 pro fights. Wow.
Yeah.
And what's your most exciting pro fight, or what do you think is your pinnacle of one of your fights?
I would say winning my first title as a professional.
How was that?
It was great. I fought for Rebel Fighter, and I fought a guy out of Oakdale, or Last Stand Fight Team. So where Michael McDonald is out of. I fought one of their guys. He had a lot more experience than I had. I think he was a wrestler. That fight ended up going 3 rounds, and I finished him in the 3rd round, TKO via elbows. So, it was an action-packed fight. We were throwing at each other. He took me down, I took him down, and, I ended up on top and with the ground and pound, and the ref called it in 3rd. So
nice.
It was exciting. You have all your friends, your family there, people you don't know in the crowd, and
everyone's supporting you. And
everyone's supporting you, and, it's a pro fight. It's a belt.
Yeah.
So it's.
How did it feel to because growing up, I've said it before, I was a big time wrestling fan, right? So I always wanted those title belts, and you used to, wear my belt and make your little belt. How was it to actually have them put that belt on you?
It was awesome. Even though it didn't fit, it was a little bit too big for me. But it was awesome. And me and my friends, we partied for, I would say, about a month.
That belt went everywhere?
Yeah, belt went everywhere. We went
Did you name it?
We went to San Jose, went to the day parties at Myth. The belt was with me.
Oh, nice.
We went to the club at night in the city. Belt was with me.
Nice.
So it was fun. It was fun.
Did any knuckleheads try to get all stupid because you had the belt?
No. Everyone was just kind of like, what's he carrying around? And me, I'm just all carrying it around, trying to look all cool and stuff.
That is pretty tight, though.
But no, it was fun.
Yeah, awesome. So let's because we're winding down. I mean, that's quick. I mean, how fast time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
So people, what's coming up in your future now? What's going on next?
I'll be fighting in June. Nothing's been confirmed yet. I'm waiting for my manager to confirm opponents, but it's most likely looking towards West Coast fighting, defending my belt.
Nice.
So that will be in June if it does go down.
And for people that are at home, want to get a hold of you and continue to watch you and support you on as you keep going, especially since you're a big kid. Yeah. How do they get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/stayfilthy. I also have Twitter, Filthy Germs. That's Germs with a J and Z at the end for Germs. Instagram, Germ the Kid. Again, that's Germ with the J, DAKIDD. And then also check out my website, JeremiahLabiano.com.
Nice. Nice. I was thinking germs, and then what we were talking about earlier just made me start laughing. Sorry about that. Thanks again, man, for coming and hanging out with us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Continue, knocking people out and doing what you got to do. And thanks for coming out on FightLogic TV. Remember, check us out on FightLogic TV. Check us out via YouTube. Check us out on Instagram. Check us out on Facebook. Keep watching and support our local stars and athletes that are fighting for what they want. And like FightLogic says, you got to go and fight for what you want and do it. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Keep watching. See you next week.